Oh, here we go. What's going on, guys? This is the Experienced Optimist, and today I have a special guest. He goes by the name of Supertriz, real cool guy. His channel's real good. I'm gonna put a link in the description. You guys got to go out there and check him out. He talks about a lot of topics, but specifically, we're going to be talking about traveling and the benefits of traveling for men. So let's get to it. What's up, Supertriz? How you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great. I can't complain. I'm a little tired, but you're a little tired too. You just came off a 12-hour shift. So yeah, man, I want to get this started by talking about yourself and your channel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, basically, myself, military veteran, was in the military for about 9 years. I'm originally from California, Southern California to be exact. And I did live in Houston for about 7 years before coming here at the end of 2014. Here is Seattle area. And I'm actually liking it out here. I'm enjoying the weather. Um, Not sure to be a long-term stay here. I may be looking to relocate overseas, but in the interim, I am here. And I kind of got into YouTube just by chance, I guess. I began looking at other people's videos just as more leisure. And I would notice that, hey, it's like I want to join the conversation because I feel like I had something to add. So I began commenting, and then commenting in the comment section turned to guest appearing on people's panels. And then lately I've been actually producing content. So here I am.
Okay, that's cool. So, which branch of service were you in?
I was in the Army. I was in the Army, yes.
Okay, all right. I was in the Air Force. So,
Okay.
all right. So, let me ask the first question here. Why do you like Germany so much?
Why do I like Germany so much? I like Germany because I'm not really a fan of homogenous societies.
Mm,
I do like the diversity that Germany provides. Germany is, for those that don't know, um, it has a diverse population there. Um, there are some differences between the populations in Germany and in the United States, but there it's still diverse nonetheless. Um, I like Germany because, believe it or not, is really weird, but the ambiance there. It was something about Germany when I actually would go out in the towns and into the cities, and just the way the architecture looked, the way the cities were structured, the streets. Even if I went out in the middle of the night and no one is walking around, just the ambiance I would get, even in the absence of people, uh, just really touched me a certain way. So
hmm. Well, keeping with that, like, why do you think travel is so important for men nowadays?
nowadays, I would say travel has been important for men, and a lot of men have missed out. I think a lot of men go through life and never leave uh, their general vicinity. Most people never leave their state. Um, you can just look up the statistics on travel. Most people never travel,
Hmm.
and you miss out on so much. Um, Number one, the opportunity to meet new people and learn about different cultures and experience life, especially to look at things from a different perspective, from the outside looking in. Because in America, we're on the inside looking out, just like somebody in Europe. They look at America, you know, or they kind of perceive their own country where they're at from the inside looking out. But it's different when you're go to a different country and then look back on where you came from the outside looking in, and it puts things into perspective.
Mm. Well, keep them. So, I made a comment recently, and I was talking about how men should travel. I was talking about all men should travel, but I said specifically black men. And then someone responded and said, well, it's going to be the same everywhere you go. You're going to face all this racism, and it's going to be terrible, and Europeans are horrible people, and on that. don't want to travel because of fear. And I wanted to get your opinion on, is it really that bad as a black man yourself traveling overseas?
This is the biggest misconception, and it really irks me to hear from people who've never traveled. And this is who you hear from. You hear from people who've never traveled, and it's really sad. And I believe it's basically again, from the inside looking out, your perspective is so limited. You really can't see the forest for the trees, as they say. So for anybody who believes that, it's definitely not true. There's no place that's going to be more racist than the United States. Now, there are certain areas that are homogenous, say, for instance, in Asia, maybe in some even Hispanic countries, Latino countries. They're not really homogenous, but they have a lower concentration of different ethnic groups, and a higher concentration of a specific demographic. Some of the Asian countries, they're like, in the 90 percentiles or 90 percentages of ethnic composition, very homogenous. And so those areas have what's called xenophobia. And so xenophobia is oftentimes confused with racism. It's a little bit different, so there's definitely a need to distinguish the two. But as far as racism in particular, let's say, Europe, obviously there is going to be some racism anywhere you go. That's just natural. Certain people are going to be drawn to certain people. Then you'll find people in Germany. There are people in Germany, as there are people in the United States, who are racist against people of their own ethnic groups. So the racism is just a natural. I think it's a natural human response to environmental challenges and environmental competition. So when you look at an opposing entity as competition, oftentimes you harbor ill sentiment towards that other individual because they threaten your survivability or your access to certain resources. And so that, I believe, is the actual root cause of racism. So again, that's something that you're going to experience anywhere you go. What I like about Europe in particular is that the individuals who feel a sense of racism, they're very open about it. So right off the bat, as opposed to the United States, where it is a covert racism. And the racism manifests itself as your inability to make progress or headway in certain spaces. Say, for instance, you're on a job, you wonder why you can't progress in a job. Well, the individuals who smile in your face, deep down inside, are racist against you. And, if you do enough research on the internet, you'll see videos where somebody gets exposed, a hidden camera is posted somewhere, hidden recorder, and then you hear how the bosses really think about you or your coworkers really think about you. So again, that does occur, but at least in Europe, I believe from my experience, people are more open about it and say, hey, I don't like you. Here's a good example. And I'll pass it back to you after this. I remember being in Europe, in Germany in particular, and I went to a club. This particular club was kind of like an underground club. So you have to walk down some stairs and go to like a subterranean area to access the club. The club was in its entirety was housed underground. And as I was going down the stairs, and I was with a group of individuals, associates and friends, who were all German. And as we got to the door, the doorman looked up the staircase because I was kind of towards the back of the group. He looked up and he looked directly at me and he said, he can't come in. No black people. Just like that. Like, it was no sugarcoating. It was no cold words. Wasn't dog whistles. He just said, he can't come in. No black people. And he said it clear as day. Wasn't trying to hide it. And the individuals I were with, they got kind of offended and more embarrassed, I believe, because I guess they wasn't expecting that to happen, but they want to kind of argue with the guy. And I was like, no, don't even worry about it. We'll just go somewhere else. And that's just my approach to individuals who react to me being in spaces where I'm not wanted. You move on. You take your business, your dollars elsewhere. That's not a big deal. And that was like one of the. I think there might have been 2 incidences where you've had the overt racism, and again, I understand where that stems from. You have individuals. Number one, individuals truly don't want you there. They're not. There's no attraction. So basically, they're saving you from wasting your time. So that is appreciated. Number one. Number two, you have individuals who are just threatened by your presence. They understand the level of competition you bring to the table, and so I'm actually flattered when people are racist against me.
Well, that's funny. I noticed that the thing is, when you have like a military pension coming in, or some other type of pension, or you maybe have online money coming in, it seems like you experience a lot of less racism overseas, because you're not, like you said before, you're not competing with the people in that country. So I think a lot of people don't really think about it that way. I mean, if you're going in and you're competing with the people, or you don't have anything to offer, then it's going to be harder for you to fit into that society, and you may encounter some problems. Would you agree?
Yeah, but I guess it just depends on the spaces that you're in.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, like if you're like just your presence itself generally doesn't invoke ill will, but certain spaces where, especially where you're in interactions with the opposite sex, because if you're coming just as a tourist, your dollar is welcome. You'll find that anywhere. Mm-hmm. But it's generally when the opposite sex is involved, that's where the racism generally kicks in, because even if you're not necessarily interested or attempting to initiate contact with members of the opposite sex, if the men in a particular group feel as though if you're garnering more attention, the women that they're with are looking at you, and and they just feel threatened by your presence, then that's when you'll see that racist sometimes. And it is really and truly, here's the thing about people who have racism that stems from that. Now, obviously, there are other sources of racism. I don't want to get into all that. If you want to, then we could. But when we look at people who have racism that in particular stems from, insecurity, mm-hmm. Against you as a man, it's really nothing you can do about it. I mean, and again, like I said, you have to have an approach where, it's more or less flattery. Like, hey, you feel as though if I'm that much competition for you, or I'm garnering that much attention from the women in your particular group and demographic, it's just for me, it's just more of a flattery thing. And, I don't too much worry about it. I mean, it's going to happen. Yeah. And a lot of times the guys don't realize, even, and this is not something that's just limited to one demographic. Men within my demographic, African Americans, exhibit racism towards, or maybe even prejudice towards other groups, because they feel threatened by other groups as well. And so the thing about it is that when you look at a particular demographic of women, mm-hmm. right? And the only exception may be Asian women, because statistically speaking, there's a high percentage of Asian women who have, relationships with, intimate relationships with men interracially. But most groups of women have a relatively low rate of interracial, quote unquote, interracial relations. So what that means is that most of the competition you face is from your own group. So when people look at other groups as threats and ignore the threats that come from within their own group, is really is men acting on emotion, because that's an emotional response, because you're ignoring the actual realities. And the reality is that the threat is going to come from somebody who looks just like you, more than likely. The woman that you don't get because she found somebody else more attractive is usually she going to be attracted to somebody who looks like you, as opposed to somebody who doesn't. That's just the statistics. We look at statistics. We understand that interracial relationships they represent a low percentage of relationships, and that's across the board, all groups. And so the racism that stems from that particular ideology is based in fallacy.
Amongst black men, but men in general, they think that when they go somewhere, they're just going to be treated bad, based on race and stuff like that. For example, I remember I was in Germany, right, and there was this white guy, man, and you would think that, and he was a pretty boy, right? He looked like a Backstreet Boy or whatever. You would think that he would get a lot of play overseas, but he went over there, man, and he hated, like, the girls didn't like him, like nothing. I mean, nothing gelled. And what I learned from that, and that's learned from other experiences overseas, is that there's certain places, and Wikipedia is called personal environment fit. There's certain places that you just click with. The culture, you like the food, the people like you, and it seems like you can do no wrong when you travel to these places. So I want to ask you about this environment fit. What you thought about that? Are there particular places that you can go and fit in so you can get over that fear of traveling?
Well, I mean, absolutely. And, and unfortunately, there are just some areas that are going to be more receptive to certain demographics. I mean, this is just the reality of it. And you'll find that, there may be different reasons why. It could be just, propaganda, media influence, and, because remember that some of these areas, the only imagery they have of other groups are what they see on TV or the internet. And so if certain agendas are being pushed by the media, then those are the imagery that they're going to receive. And so that can affect, the people's perception of you before you even get there. So an example would be like, just most Caucasian men I find gravitate towards Asia, and they tend to have a very, very good experience there. Most black men that I hear that go to Asia generally don't have as good of an experience. Most black men have a better experience in what you would consider Hispaniola. So like that would be like Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and then in some of the areas in Latin America, like Brazil, Colombia, and Panama, stuff like that, maybe Trinidad. I hear good things as far as black men's experiences while they are there. And so they're just going to be certain areas that are going to be more receptive to you. And it could be just based on, the imagery that they received of you and how they perceive the imagery they receive. Some people are drawn to some cultures, just culturally, they're drawn towards people who they perceive to be more rebellious, people who they receive to be more masculine, and some areas where they may be drawn by people they may be drawn to resources. So men who project a sense of wealth and fortune. And so individuals like that will resonate more with those demographics that whose culture values those type of things. So, and then you may have a particular culture where they may be so, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? They may be so accustomed to one thing and they want something else. So like if something is easy to obtain, like if you see it all around you, you begin to take it for granted. And so now you see somebody who comes and looks different culture, walks different, talks different, dress different, looks different. And so now that person is more intriguing. So I think it's very important that people understand, like, why make things harder for yourself? I mean, there's some cases where there may be an intrinsic attraction to a certain aesthetic characteristics. And so that may limit you as far as where you will want to go. But if you have an open perspective, an open mind, and you can find beauty in all ethnic groups, then you should look more towards what ethnic or what geographic region is going to be more receptive to you. And what I found is that Germany was very receptive to me. And let me just say that was quite receptive.
Yeah, that's the thing. Let me pack this real quick. That's the thing. I find that going back to personal environment fit, right? There's some guys, like, say for instance, there's a Hispanic guy, right? And he's basically got a model. He may go to like Asia, Korea, and all those places, and just and no one likes him. Everyone hates him. And then he may go to a place like, let's say Ghana, right? He goes to Ghana, and then everyone loves him. So it's one of those things where you really have to take the fear out of it. But I also want to talk about, well, let's start at the beginning. So let's say you're a young guy, you really want to travel, fear is not stopping you. What's the first step a guy needs to take when he wants to get out there and travel?
You're talking about men from the United States, correct?
Yeah, men from the United States, yes.
Okay, so for men from the United States who don't have a job that forces them to travel, I would recommend the very first place to go is to go to Vegas.
Go to Vegas. Why is that?
Because Vegas is so diverse, you're going to get women from different countries. So that is kind of like a conditioning. See, me, I grew up in Southern California.
Okay.
I used to go to Vegas as a weekend trip as a kid. So I've been to Las Vegas at least 100 times, probably more than that. But I'm just throwing a number out there, at least 100 times, like literally. And so I was conditioned to be comfortable around other demographics, because you'll find you go to Vegas and you'll see plenty of America, but you'll see a lot of people who don't even speak English half the time. And so you're around people, you don't know what they're saying, you don't know what's going on, and it just acclimates you to being in unfamiliar territory. Then you got all the different buildings that look different, different themed. It's like a subconscious conditioning that occurs when you're there. And I think that's a good first step. Number one, the flights to Vegas are very cheap. Mm-hmm. Accommodations can be had cheap if you stay off the Strip. And you can maybe stay somewhere like in an Airbnb, if money's really tight, or you can stay downtown. I would recommend downtown for somebody who's been to Vegas a couple times already. Downtown, I like myself personally, I will go to downtown because I've been to the Strip. The Strip, I've been to there a million times. So for me, a better experience for me would be like downtown. But for somebody who's trying to get out there and really travel, definitely you want to stay on the Strip or somewhere near the Strip, or even have access to the Strip via a rental car. So maybe you get an Airbnb and you drive to the Strip, or maybe you catch a bus or something to the Strip so you can walk around and just get comfortable walking up and down the Strip, talking to people from different parts of the world, and like just strike up a conversation, and you'll find, oh yeah, I'm from Brazil, or I came here from Norway, I came here from Japan, and that's what you're gonna find. They're gonna find people from all over the world.
Okay, so all right, so let's say you go to a couple times to people, and then you really want to go to, let's say, Germany, like you did. What's the next step after that?
So Germany is a big first step because Germany is an expensive trip. Mm-hmm. The flights, I wouldn't say are horribly expensive, but accommodations, room and board, food, activities, transportation, all of that is going to be expensive in Germany. So you probably want to look at some place maybe cheaper, like you know, I mean, it depends, you know. And oftentimes the hardest part for most people is going by themselves, because when you try to plan trips with other people, oftentimes they're going to leave you hanging.
Okay, all right, let's break this down. Okay, so would you recommend going by yourself? Would you recommend traveling with other people?
I guess it depends on personality, because some people are just not as outgoing. If you're more of an introvert, you probably want to go with somebody because you want to enjoy yourself, because you're not able to initiate contact with people. You know, somebody like myself, I wouldn't necessarily consider myself an extrovert, but I have no problem initiating contact. I have no problem striking up conversations, you know. And so if you're the type of person who can actually initiate a conversation, then it may be better to go by yourself, for the simple fact that again, trying to coordinate a vacation with an entire another person that you're not necessarily in like a woman, a girlfriend or something like that would be different. But like, say for you trying to coordinate with a guy, like one of your guy friends, it's going to be hard for y'all to get on the same. You guys have got different jobs and trying to coordinate the vacation days, and then the last minute, the person that you made a plan with, you know what, something came up, or you know, something like that. So when you only have to rely on yourself, it's a lot easier to connect the dots. And so from that particular perspective, that's one of the reasons why I would recommend going alone. But for the actual experience of, you know, having a, you know, quote unquote wingman, maybe you guys can share responsibilities for driving. So like if you like, say for instance, you fly to Europe, and you fly into Germany, you fly into Frankfurt, and you want to see some of the other areas in Europe. And you're like, okay, well, the cheapest way we can do this is if we drive. So you get a rental car. Now you got two people that can drive, as opposed to trying to make those drives all by yourself. You know, if you got one's taking a nap and then y'all switch, and y'all can cover a lot of ground that way, not waste any time. So that's the advantage of that. And y'all can split, you know, room costs, and, you know, some of the expenses can be, you know, rental car, you can kind of share some expenses. So from that perspective, going with somebody can save money and kind of enhance your experience. So if you can go with somebody and you can actually make it work as far as, you know, timing, oh,
you kind of broke up there a little bit.
hold on for a second. I had an issue. Okay, I'm sorry, I had an issue with my Google Hangouts for some reason. But yeah, if you can coordinate a trip with somebody, you know, and like you can actually coordinate it efficiently and it works, I would definitely recommend going with somebody. But from my perspective, I'm not gonna wait for somebody to get it together. Like, I'm the type of person, okay, this is the time I plan on going. Either you with me or you're not. If you're not, okay, that's cool, no harm, no foul. But I'm gone, with or without you.
Yeah, I'm like that too. I like to travel alone just because people always flake out. They can never get their pass. See, how much is a passport? I haven't got mine in such a long time. I still have mine, but I forgot the cost. How much is the passport? Do you know?
I think there's two types where you get like the expedited passport versus the conventional one. And I think it's probably like maybe like $60, $70 for a conventional one. The expedited one, maybe like 100 something, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. I think I did mine, and I got the Brazilian visas for when I was going to Rio. I think the total cost expedited was like 300 or something bucks with the visa and the passport. So yeah, something like that. Well, I want to ask you about, actually, Spooky had a question. He wanted to know what it was like talking and interacting with the women in Germany.
Well, for those that have never been to Germany, Germany is a highly developed nation. Probably has the strongest economy in Europe. out of all the countries, and that includes Great Britain. Germany, what you'll find that in Germany is that English is one of the languages that's taught in school. So I would say for people who are under the age of 60, so 60 and below, I would say 85 to 90% of them speak English. Now, as you get above 60, that number of them drops dramatically. You know, there's hit or miss older than 60, but like 60 and below, I would say about 85% of them speak English. And the ones that don't speak English under 60, they can at least kind of understand a little bit, and maybe say a couple words, so you can actually just at least have the basic communication. But as far as like the women, most of the women there who actually want to interact with Americans, they're definitely going to speak English because they want to interact. So I was there. I was there for about like maybe a little over a year. I didn't have to speak German at all.
Yeah, when I was over there, everyone seemed to speak English as well. Now there were some times where, but I'm old, so when I went over there, there were some people, some young women I was talking to at the time, and we had to use the hand signals and the broken English, that type of thing.
Well, you know what? A lot of the women that I encountered that didn't speak English weren't actually German. They were like immigrants.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like women from the Middle East, and a lot of them didn't speak English, and then you get the women from Africa, and but like most of the German women that I encountered, there were some women from like Eastern Europe, like Bulgaria and Romania, Kazakhstan, like them areas like that. Yeah, they couldn't speak English either, but most of the German women could, no problem.
Okay, so let's say, all right, so we went to Vegas, right? Talked to people in Vegas. We got our passport. We paid how much? $300, whatever. And now we're ready to go overseas. Now let's talk about conducting ourselves overseas, because I think there's a lot of times guys get into trouble. They get overseas and they start acting a fool. They start acting like a basic stereotype, and they screw up the trip not only for themselves, but then the people have a negative image of them in wherever place they travel to. So how should you conduct yourself when you go overseas as an American?
Number one, remember that you're an ambassador everywhere you go. So your behavior is going to reflect poorly on people who come after you. So you definitely want to conduct yourself in a manner befitting of an ambassador, number one. Number two, you don't want to jeopardize your enjoyment while on that trip, because remember, this is something that you have to provision for. You have to save money. You have to set aside days to get away from work. You have to coordinate with other individuals if you're not going alone. So you definitely want to make that trip worthwhile. You don't want to be in a situation where you're barred from re-entry into the country, because that can and does happen to some people. You do something so bad, they won't let you back in the country, and then you'll miss out for eternity. Also, especially in a country like Germany, I think a lot of guys go to these other countries and they bring that American mentality with them. Like somebody could just bump shoulders with them, and then you're ready to have you want to confront them, and why didn't you say, excuse me? Why are you stepping my shoes? Why are you looking at my girl like that? Like things like that, really confrontational type stuff that they don't let fly in certain countries. Like they'll throw you in jail, and you'll sit in jail before you go to trial. Like you won't see a judge right away. You may sit in jail for a month or two before you see a judge in some of these other countries. So this is something to think about. It's not, the laws are not the same. And again, ignorance of the law is not an excuse, so you just have to be cognizant of things like that, because you don't want to ruin that opportunity there. It's like, and it's really unnecessary, some of the behaviors that I see. And a lot of the behaviors are based on just male machismo and bravado. And that's what's really going to spoil your trip.
I was thinking about, I got another comment, when I was talking about traveling overseas, and there were these two women that said that, oh, basically, like I said before, everyone's evil overseas, and they were like, I traveled to Canada, and I traveled to all over Europe and Russia and stuff like that. And I find that a lot of men in America, they really think like women in that regard. I don't know if it's because they grew up in single mother households or whatever, but they're really risk averse. So I want to ask you, how can you get over that fear of everything type of mentality?
There is no easy answer to that, especially when you've been conditioned since childhood. And a lot of guys who, depending on who your parents were, that's going to affect if they weren't travelers, if they're not risk takers, if they've been subverted by propaganda and indoctrinated by westernized society and civilization, to think that every other country outside the United States is a third world country, developing nation, and it's dangerous and lawless, then you're obviously gonna be immersed in such mentalities, and it's gonna be very, very hard for you to break that mold. And the only way you can do it is if you just see it for yourself. You have to kind of jump off into the deep end, so to speak, and really just take that leap of faith. I mean, again, there's no easy answer for that, because that conditioning is so hard to break, so hard. And I mean, I know plenty of people like that. You can't convince them to go anywhere else. They just will not take that risk.
Well, you see the differences in the military guys, right? The Navy guys, the Air Force guys like myself, Army guys like yourself. How come? Because a lot of guys have been traveling overseas for a long time and living better lives overseas. How come those military guys can't seem to put that across to?
What do you mean put that across?
Well, convince the guys in America to do so, to travel as well. I mean, like, I know the conditioning is very thick, but it seems like at this point, there's a lot of guys in Marines, Army, Air Force, and they go to Japan and places like that, and they love it. And it seems like there would be more people in America that would be willing to travel now based on the experiences of those guys coming back over and telling them about it. You know what I mean?
Well, it's hard to really convey how great it is. Like, people, number one, a lot of times they're focused on here, right? Here, where I'm at now. And so everything that you do is to enhance the here. Like, I'm making money, I'm saving it so I can buy a nice car, so I can buy clothes, so I can get furniture, and so I can, impress the women here. So it's like it's focused on here. And if you save up money to go on a trip, it's almost like the mentality, like, well, I'm wasting money that I could have spent, on my boat, or I could have got another motorcycle. It just, it's really, you have to allocate resources. And if you're not making a certain amount of money, you can't see yourself provisioning money for something that you feel as though if it's more superfluous than anything. And that's part of the barrier right there. Number two, it's hard to really convey to somebody how good things can be outside the United States, because, again, that propaganda conditions you to think that this is the best place on earth. It's not going to get any better than this. and it can get a lot worse if you go somewhere else. And there's a lot like I guess it's like urban legend, so to speak, because people will say like, yeah, well, don't they not shave their armpits in Germany, or don't take baths in Germany? Like all these misconceptions about things in Germany, like negative stereotypes, and so they don't feel a compelling factor to travel because it's like, well, I don't want to go there and and deal with women who don't take baths, or or I don't want to go to Dominican Republic because all women do is they're just gonna beg me for money and I'm not gonna have a good time, or I don't want to travel because only desperate guys travel, and I got
I hate that.
it.
I hate that desperate man stuff. I really hate that one just because, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're making a great point. You're making a very great point because a lot of guys, again, they don't understand that they only have the United States as their point of reference. And that's what was so crucial about me traveling. And this is why I recommend everybody travel. Number one, if you don't have a passport, start that process now.
Okay.
Because it's a lot cheaper if you don't have to expedite a passport. Just start the process now. Just look online, find out the steps. Some places you go to the post office and it's an all-inclusive package. They'll take your passport picture and they'll do the paperwork for you. Some places they require you to go one place. Maybe you go like to Walmart, get a passport photo, and take that passport photo to maybe a post office and then start the process there. So do the research, find out what the steps are, and hey, it's no rush. Say just make a commitment. Say, hey, today I'm gonna at least look up the steps to getting a passport. And you can say, okay, and then next week I'm going to start the process. I'm going to go get my passport photo taken. I'm going to start the paperwork. So that way, you won't even think about it. Next thing you know, you already got a passport. Your passport will be there. And so if the opportunity does present itself, you at least have your passport ready for you. Okay. So that's what I think that people should be doing, as far as that's concerned.
Okay, let's talk about an important topic here. Let's talk about escaping the matrix. And what I mean by escaping the matrix, I'm talking about you're fed up with the American society. It doesn't fit you, right? The culture doesn't fit you anymore. Like Thinking Man Templar said, you move past it. Now you want to go live overseas somewhere. What do you need to do to get your mindset ready to escape the matrix? A lot of guys have been doing that now. They've been moving over to Thailand. They've been moving over to places. What do you need to do in order to make that move overseas?
Well, this is what I've been doing. I've already been preparing. So depending on where you want to go and depending on what your economic situation is. So if you're retired and you have a consistent source of income, then it's a lot easier for you. You can just pick up and go, right? But for those of you who are still at the age where you have to generate revenue, like myself, I still have to have a certain income. It's a little bit more tricky. So from my perspective, I realized that in order to do what I do overseas, I need to have a bachelor's degree. So I went back to school to get my bachelor's degree, and so now, I'll be in a position to actually make that move and transition, which I plan to do this summer sometime. I actually plan to move to Europe.
Beautiful.
So
what part?
Germany.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I've been provisioning for, the past year and a half or so. So that's like one of the first steps. You want to look and see, what does it take to do, what will I need to do to make money so that way I can relocate, right? So if you're going to get another job in another country, start looking up, occupations in another country. Find out how much they pay comparable to the cost of living. A good website is I believe it's called the Nomad List. Let me make sure that's what it's called. I want you guys, everybody that's listening and everybody that's in the chat, I definitely want you. There it is. It's called Nomad List. Nomadlist.com. I'm going to actually put the link inside the chat. Nomadlist.com is very, very important because it gives you a cost of living. It's compiled data by traveling men.
Let me write that down.
I'm putting it in the chat right now for you guys. Nomadlist.com. And so you may have to put in the chat because I'm not a moderator. So I don't know if the hyperlink is going to show up. But Nomadlist.com, right? This website compiles data to give you exactly how much it's going to cost to live on a weekly or monthly basis in every country you can imagine. And that's something that's very important. You need to know how much it's going to cost for you to live there. Like, it's going to tell you how much your internet's going to cost, how much rent, how much food you expect to spend on food, things of that nature. So that's something very crucial. So figure out a budget in order to move overseas, right? And once you figure out that budget, then you got to decide, okay, what kind of occupation do I need to do to make that kind of budget?
Yeah.
You have a couple of different options, right? You can actually work on that economy of the country you plan to move to, or you can have your own business of some sort, maybe some type of internet-based business, something that you can do, from a computer or a laptop, so you definitely want to look at ways to generate revenue while you're overseas, because the biggest mistake people make is they underestimate the amount of money they need to live somewhere else. And a lot of guys go to Thailand, they go to, Philippines, and they're there and they run out of money. Dominican Republic, they run out of money. Then they got to come back to the United States. That's poor planning. You can't get over there and then try to figure out what you're going to do for money. It's like, oh, I got some money saved up, I'll figure something out. And then you move over there and then you don't figure nothing out. You blow through all your money. You can't do that. You have to have a plan. You got a plan before you get over there and say, okay, this is how much it costs to live over there. This is how I'm going to make the money to live over there. And this is how my budget is going to be set up. So, and then once you get over there, you have to set a budget and stick to it and say, okay, I'm going to spend no more than $100 or, whatever, $100 a week, right? And I don't care if your grandma need a new wooden leg. You're not going to spend over $100. You say, listen, I don't got it. I got a budget of $100 a week. I don't have the money to give you. Sorry. Maybe it'll take me, based on my budget and my weekly expenditures, I can maybe save up the money to give you in 8 weeks and leave it at that. And if they don't like it, too bad. And that's how you have to be. And then you have to look at how you spend money in America, like, especially if you're going to take actual pay cut, right? So you're living and working in America. You say, okay, I want to live in Vietnam. Just throwing that out there. So you want to live in Vietnam, and you know that you're only going to make the equivalent of $600 American a month, right? So if you're going to make the equivalent of $600 American, you don't want to have a budget, or let's say you're going to make the equivalent of $800 American. You don't want to have a budget of $800 American, because what if something goes awry? You haven't accounted in your budget for any leniency. So if you're going to make $800 American a month, then your budget needs to be like $600 American a month. You need to have that $200 a month cushion. Plus, you're going over there with some money in a savings, so you have some padding there anyway. But then your month-to-month budget is going to be less than your actual gross revenue. So that way you account for things that can happen. You may say, for instance, I got my budget down to a science. You go to some of these other countries, there may be corruption in some of these other countries. You may have an encounter with law enforcement, and they may say, okay, you don't want to go to jail. I need $200. And you haven't accounted for that in your budget. Guess what? You're going to jail, and you're not getting out. So this is what I'm talking about. You guys got to really plan ahead when you're talking about going overseas, because too many guys, they go overseas They're just gonna move over there and they say, oh, I got $200,000 saved up, and I could live like a king on $200,000. Yeah, you can live like a king for a couple years, or you can live like the average person living in that country, and then live there 30 years, maybe even longer if you invest the money that you're not planning to spend right away. So that's just something to think about. Don't go there with that American mindset of how you spend money over here. Try to live like the locals, because the locals do make do on far less. So if you can live like the locals, then your money will go a long way. You won't have any problems. But the minute you go over there trying to live like an American, and a lot of guys do that because they go over there and they want to impress the women over there in whatever country they're in. And so they want something to differentiate themselves from the locals and say, hey, I'm an American. I got money. It's nothing to me. And that's how they get caught up and get in trouble.
That's their biggest downfall. Number one. That's the number one downfall right there. It always comes back to a lot of men that will always come back to women and impressing women. I find that's the biggest downfall for men in life generally anyway. It's just trying to impress women. But the thing about the budgeting that you mentioned, I find that, and I'll always say this again, and people probably say, I say it too much, but the military pension is the best thing going right now. If you have $3,000 coming in a month and above, so it's $3,000. If you go E8, retire E8, you're going to be making $3,000 plus. If you're a disabled veteran, you're making $3,000 plus coming in every month, and you have access to healthcare. If you retire officer, E04 and 05, that's $5,000 a month coming in. So with that amount of money coming in, you have the freedom, and key word here is freedom, to move overseas and do whatever you want. So if you go to one particular place overseas, you get to Thailand or something, you don't like it, you can get up and move to Eastern Europe. You can get up and move to Germany. You can get up and move to South America. You always want to make sure you have that money coming in per month. But yeah, continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Supertriz.
No. This definitely is a dialogue, and so I definitely appreciate your input, because it kind of helps redirect me as far as the conversation is concerned. You made a very good point about military pension, because that money, it follows you anywhere you go in the world. And so for those of you guys that are in the military, thinking about going to the military, I definitely recommend that you take advantage of the educational opportunities that are provided for you by the military. Get a degree. If you're going to be in the military, if you're going to make a career out of it, get a degree so that way you can actually be an officer. The process is that you actually get a degree. If you're most actual specialties require some sort of bachelor's degree to be a candidate for officer, with a couple of exceptions. Like, say, for instance, if you're in the medical field, certain professions in the medical field, if you have an associate's degree, that's going to gain you entry into being into the officer arena. Although you will be limited as far as your ascension. So with an associate's degree, I believe that you can only rise as high as maybe a first lieutenant or a captain. At the most, a captain, but it may be a first lieutenant is the highest you can go, because that's the Army. I mean, the other branches are different, but it's the same. Basically, 03 will be the highest you can go, I believe. It may be a 02, the highest you can go. So, with that being said, you definitely want to, try to get a bachelor's degree. Look at the actual field that you're going to be entering in and see, what's the requirements to be an officer. Meet those requirements. Be an officer, so that way when you retire, you have a more substantial amount of money coming in every month. That's the key. You want to set yourself up for retirement later on. Once you guys are actually retired, then you have that ability to kind of move around and kind of like basically live anywhere you want to. And that really kind of makes things a lot easier for you as far as transitioning to moving to another country. For those of us that are not in the military, anymore, or who never were in the military, it's a little bit trickier, but it is doable. You just have to kind of plan ahead and kind of provision for the future and say, okay, I need to put away this amount of money, and maybe I could start this business, on the side. So that way I'm able to generate revenue, without actually having to be inside the United States. Because a lot of times you're trying to go to say for instance, a less developed country. When you try to work on their economy, the actual compensation is not going to be the same. You may feel like it's not worth your while to actually work there. You know what I mean? On another country's economy. So,
well, two things that I heard from I think Taylor Made Dreams mentioned this. He said there was a lady who was kind of like a travel agent. She was so basically when you made travel plans, she was like the customer service rep or something like that handled that type of stuff. And she moved overseas. She got paid obviously from an American corporation, but she made just enough. She didn't make a whole bunch of money, but the money that she made allowed her to live overseas, and she did that telephone operator thing overseas. And then I heard there's other customer service companies that you can do that as well. And so you can move overseas to any place and make a decent amount of money to live there. But you're kind of in the medical field, if I'm correct.
yes.
And you're planning on moving over to Germany, and then you're going to work in the medical field. So that's obviously pretty good too. So we'll talk about that.
Well, again, like most countries, Germany. Well, I would say pretty much any country. If you want to move to another country and you want to work on their economy, you want to get a work visa, you're going to need a bachelor's degree. That's like 99% of the countries. They're going to require a bachelor's degree to work to actually get a work visa. So if that's the plan, if that's the route you plan to go, then I would definitely recommend you start looking at schooling now and try to work on getting a degree of some sort. Some of the Asian countries, you get like a little bachelor's degree, you can teach English or something like that. That's what a lot of people do. Although opportunities like that may be drying up because of automation and, so that's just something to think about too. So kind of look towards the future, if you're not going to do it right away, look at your prospects for the future and kind of plan ahead and look at, getting yourself qualified to actually apply for a work visa if you plan to work on the economy. So yeah, that's definitely something that I would look at, and it definitely depends on the country. From my particular perspective, being in healthcare, I plan to actually work at, well, hopefully, my ideal scenario would be to work at the military hospital, because there is a military hospital in Germany. If that doesn't pan out, though, I have already looked into working on the German economy. And for those people who are interested in working in, different countries, try to look at agencies. There are agencies that facilitate you to work in another country that will actually, basically see in a language school if need be, and kind of, help you set up with the visa process. So to kind of streamline things for you. And, or you can kind of, do the research and figure it out yourself. So there's a lot of options out there for you. Because I'm in a healthcare field, there's always a big demand for what it is that I do. And I did the due diligence and I looked ahead. I did the research actually about a year ago, and I just kind of, periodically recheck up on things. But there's tons of opportunities out there. They're really looking for people to fill these positions. So I think I'm in a good space as far as my prospects are concerned. It's just the route I plan to go, whether it be through the military hospital or be through a hospital in the German economy.
I'm glad you said it. And the reason why I'm glad is because in the healthcare, and you said you could move overseas, work at the base. You could work at the naval base near Seville in Spain. There's also Air Force base over there. You got Germany. There's like 3-4 bases, right? In Germany, something like that. You got Puerto Rico. There's a VA hospital there. So there's also, if you're in healthcare, not only are you going to get paid a good amount of money, if you can get one of those bases, American bases overseas, where there's a whole bunch of them, then you can make a good amount of money and get to explore the world. And then there's also another job, network security right now. Network security is really big. You make six figures with that position. Some of those jobs you can work location independent. So you can work out of, Belize, you can work out of anywhere there's an internet connection, and you can help people with their network security and make a good amount of money and escape the matrix that way. So, yeah, man, let's see.
You made a good point about escaping the matrix, yeah, because again, you really have to you don't understand how toxic this environment is until you leave. Once you leave America and you actually especially you really want to trip for at least a week to really unwind. And the longer the better. Because the longer you're away, the more you'll feel that weight lifted off your shoulders. And then once you go back and then you see things from a different perspective, your eyes are open. Now you start noticing things like, wait a minute, when I was overseas, the women did this, for me, and they did that. Why can't the women here do that for me? You start to ask questions.
Yeah.
Like, what's the difference? Why are the women so masculine here? What's going on? Whatever happened to the concept of femininity? And you start to see things that you've been deprived of. And so then when you come back, there's certain things that you don't tolerate as a man.
Exactly.
And your standards are like, man, I don't have to deal with that. I don't have to deal with that. And so I think that is a big key for people a big reason why people should actually look at traveling overseas, just to put things into perspective and to see what it is that you've been missing.
Yeah, basically, I mean, when you go overseas, it's not even just the women too, it's the culture. You find out that the cultures overseas, a lot of times people treat you with more respect.
Yeah.
They have basic, and it's sad to say, they have basic manners. Even if they don't like you, they may not like you, but they'll still say hello, goodbye, they'll greet you. I mean, I'm not saying that everyone's just super happy overseas, but let's break down, last topic, I guess. Let's break down femininity overseas and interacting with women overseas. What's the difference?
I believe that the women are more receptive. There is definitely a femininity because the women actually value the man. And it's not as though if the women here, they feel as though if you're doing them a present, they're doing you a favor by even entertaining you, and somehow it's not mutually beneficial, the interaction. And just in case any man is wondering, an interaction with the woman is mutually beneficial. She's not doing you any favors. You guys are doing each other a favor by offering that companionship, and never lose perspective of that. And this is something that obviously a lot of men have lost perspective of here, and women have lost perspective of as well. Because it's the relationships or the interactions are one-sided. Only one side is actually benefiting from you. So because you're benefiting from the interaction inordinately, somehow the woman feels that you're supposed to finance that interaction, pay some way or another. You don't get that. You get women who generally act as though if maybe I don't know, maybe it's an act, maybe they truly feel that way, but they act as though if they're generally interested in getting to know you, generally interested in the interpersonal interaction that you guys are sharing with one another. The actual expressions on the face, it's just it's an entirely different vibe than you get from an American. Women already have contempt as soon as you approach them. Even if it's non-sexual in nature, they have a sense of contempt. And so that negative energy that is exuded from the pores of women here in the United States. Maybe it's not their fault, maybe that is, but what is undeniable is the actual manifestations lack of femininity, masculine energy, aggression, standoffishness, contempt. These are the vibes that you get, and it spoils your mood. It really does. And so I think that, you know, for any man, you know, you're not going to know that until you actually go over there and you see it for yourself. Don't just take my word for it. You actually have to see. And it's not just, you know, there's not just one particular country. You'll find that, because I've been to Mexico too, Venezuela, even Canada. Canada's right across the border. You'd be surprised the difference in mentality.
Absolutely.
For anybody who lives in a northern state and you haven't been to Canada, I mean, there's really no excuse. I don't know what to tell you guys. If you guys live that close to another country and you haven't taken advantage of the opportunity, just get in your car, get a passport, get in your car, drive right across the border. Now you're in a different country. And trust me, if you're in Canada, like I'm in Seattle area and I've been to Canada many times, Vancouver area, and just going across the border, you feel as though if you're in a different country, you know right away. Something different about it. You know, and the women act differently. They're just more cordial. They're more pleasant to be around. Again, it's like a feeling of mutual beneficiality, where women are actually, you know, hey, you know, let me show you around town. You know, here, don't worry about it. I'll pay for this. Let me show you this. Well, where are you staying tonight? Oh, don't get a hotel. You can stay at my place. You know, this is the type of stuff that you hear. You know, like, here's an example. This is what I recommend men do. This is a cheap trip. This is a little cheap exercise, right? Go on Tinder, download the app. There's an app called Tinder on the App Store. Download the app, you know, register, sign up, make a profile, put a picture up, maybe put about 3 pictures up. Tell a little bit about yourself. Hey, I'm such and such. Don't say where you're from or what it is. You know, just say, hey, I'm such and such. This is what I do. I'm looking to meet people. Just something simple, right? Less is more sometimes. And then you pay the upgrade for the Tinder Gold. Short period of time. Maybe you do a 3-month plan. Maybe you do a 1-month plan. But just something. $20, whatever, $30. It's not a lot of money, right? You upgrade, and then once you upgrade, you get access to the feature to alter your location. So now you can like place yourself in Germany. You can place yourself in Dominican Republic. You can place yourself in Brazil. And then do that, and then start swiping. Just look through the profile, swipe, 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 swipe. You're gonna start making connections. And then once you make connections, I want you to take a look at the women you make connections with. Look at the quality of women compared to the connections of women you make that are based in the United States. The quality is a lot higher, right? And then once you actually have conversations, the dialogue is totally different. That's what's going to get you. When you actually have the conversations with women, and it's not that spite, that contempt, that arrogance, you know, like
it's like you're fighting.
Yeah. And then
it's like a battle.
And like, I mean, just look at some of these. Look at some of the profiles on American women, and they'll say stuff like, "It's all negative. Don't contact me if you still with your baby mama. Don't contact me if you make less than that. Don't contact me if if you're gonna say anything sexual. Don't contact me if you're not looking for anything serious." Like, it's all this like negative, as opposed to, hey, I'm new to this dating scene, and I'm just looking to get to know somebody. If that sounds like something you're interested in, send me a message. I'll try to get back to you. You see the difference? Maybe the intentions could be totally the same, but it's like your expression of that, your manifestation of your intentions, as opposed to using positive terminology as opposed to negative terminology. So the American woman already set the premise for your dialogue with negativity. So the conversation is going to have its inception in negativity. This is the reason why you have so many bad experiences, because it's based on the negativity. But you know, you interact with the women over there, you know, that's what I'm saying. Like, you take a little experiment and just, you know, had a little profile, and you know, just try have a little dialogue, and then you'll see the difference in how women talk to you.
Absolutely.
And then once you actually make connections, a lot of times they'll be like, you know, hey, you know, hit me up on WhatsApp, or do you have FaceTime? And you know, these women are generally pleasant, and excited to make a connection. Whereas American, when they look at it as a chore, oh, I got to go through this whole process. Okay, what questions do you got? Or what do you want to know? Ask the question. Like, it's almost like a laborious task for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I was in Costa Rica. I met this guy, and he was American. He said he'll never date an American woman again. He said he doesn't even talk to them now. You know, he comes back, and he's just like, I got to get out of here, man. He had a friend who, I guess, he got married, and his wife was just a horrible person, and it was one of his best friends. He had known him. This guy's older. He'd known him for 30 years, something like that. And he said, man, he's like, he couldn't be with a woman like that. He went back to Costa Rica, man. He loves it.
There's a guy. Are you familiar with the YouTuber named Yes Jonas?
Yeah. Mwiak.
Mwiak. Yes, men wanting women in other countries. Yes, Jonas. He's a good buddy of mine. Yeah, we talk a lot. We're going to be doing something sometime this weekend, I believe, too. Brian Bourne, aka Bitcoin Brian. He's in Colombia right now. He's been in Colombia for the past 3 weeks. He's from the Mwiak camp, Sosua, Dominican Republic. These are now the guys who have just basically said, you know what, I'm through dealing with American women. This is a growing sentiment. The movement is growing at an exponential rate. A lot of these men, and that's what happened. These men went overseas and then opened their eyes, and they said, oh, hell no, I ain't never dealing with this again.
Exactly.
And so you got to ask yourself, men who have never traveled, you got to ask yourself, what is compelling these men to suddenly adopt that perspective and that mindset? It's got to be a strong, compelling factor. Wouldn't you want to find out for yourself? It's not hard. You know, Dominican Republic is a weekend trip. You know, you could do that. You could do that. You know, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and come back. You know, be back for Monday or Tuesday. Brazil maybe take a little bit longer, maybe a week. I know you got a week vacation. You know, set some time up, make a commitment. First of all, get your passport. Start that process now, and then, you know, make a commitment and take a trip, man. You got to take that leap of faith. And then what you do is here's the thing. Go ahead and do that Tinder and make some connections before you go. Look at the destination that you want to go to, make some connections. And so that way, you know, you can get there and be like, and listen, don't even come at them sexually. Be like, hey, you know, I'm going to be in Brazil, February the 15th. And, you know, I've never been there before. I was really looking for somebody to show me around town. And, you know, you may get a woman that she may say no, but then the next one will be like, oh, yeah, I would love to show you around. And so now you got a tour guide, right? And so now you have this woman take you and she shows you everything. So then you take mental notes. Like, okay, so this is where all the dimes is hanging out at. Okay, this is where I can get some good food for cheap. You know, you start making mental notes. And so she done showed you around, showed you a good time. And then so the next day, now you're able to venture out in the city by yourself because you've already had a tour guide show you everything. And so now you can be like, okay, I want to go back to that spot where I saw them women walk around at. And so you beeline to that area and you see all the women again that you missed out on because you were with that girl before. Now you start making some connections on your own. Yep. So it's simple, but it requires a little bit of foresight, just a little bit of foresight and a little bit of planning ahead. And that will make for a great trip.
You know, and let me add to that too. when you said don't come at them sexually, that is a very important point because when you get down there, a lot of guys get sidetracked by women. And what I've noticed when I traveled is it wasn't the women that made the places cool. It was the experiences I had. And a lot of times getting knowledge from older men who's traveled had a lot of experience.
Right.
They would tell me stuff like how to save money, how to invest in real estate, all this other stuff so that you could live more of a life of freedom. But I want to add an important point. When you get down there, this one dude told me this. If you're in the martial arts, any place you go, you can go to a jujitsu place, and in jujitsu places, whatever place where you practice jujitsu, right? Dojos, whatever. A lot of times, jujitsu dudes are really cool, man. And they're real helpful. It's just the way it is. If you've ever taken jujitsu, so you can get to a place in Brazil, go to a jujitsu place, and then ask around, like, hey, man, what are some good night spots? What are some good restaurants? And a lot of times these dudes will help you out. And so this is a good point. So do the Tinder thing, do the jiu-jitsu thing if you're into martial arts, and that will really help you out. But you know what? Let's bring up one more. I want one more topic.
Okay. Take your time.
Brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
What I find is that when it comes to building a brotherhood for getting out of the matrix and really expanding your mind, one of the things that really helps out is helping men hitting them off with wisdom and helping them become financially independent. And that's what I like about Yes Jonas and Mwiok. They're building a brotherhood where guys help each other. How important is that moving forward when it comes to traveling, business, and being a better man?
Well, there's so much strife, especially amongst men, in particular Black men here in the United States.
Mhm.
Like, especially depending on the city that you live in, you go out into the community and you're in a grocery store or maybe you're at a bar, at a stoplight. The actual looks that you get from people that look like you oftentimes aren't very pleasant. It's more of a, again, it's like you're an adversary to one another.
Mhm.
And you don't speak cordially to one another. The mean mugs and, silent treatment, ice grills, but once you go overseas and like say for you go to another country and you see somebody, and it's like a camaraderie right off the bat.
Mhm.
Hey man, what's up, man? Hey, where you from, man? And you strike up a conversation. Whereas if you were in America, that conversation wouldn't take place, which is really, really odd. So that's the reason why he's like, if we can do it over there, why can't we do it over here? And that's what we should be doing. We should be trying to empower one another and have these dialogues and these conversations like, hey, you tell me your story, I'll tell you mine. And we can see what we learn from each other. Maybe you have some pitfalls that you encounter that maybe I can avoid. You can say, hey, I know about this. I know about this investment opportunity. What do you think about that? Like, oh, well, really? Tell me a little bit more about that. And now you guys can kind of bounce ideas. Well, yeah, that's a good idea. But you know what? I know this guy that did this. And I think if we combine these two, this is what we can do. And so now you guys got it. You see what I'm saying? So it's really important because you can't maneuver through life. You can maneuver through life by yourself, but number one, it's not as enjoyable. Number two, you have to make all the mistakes on your own, and you lose a lot of ground that way, And like I said, if we can make those bonds elsewhere, there's no reason why we can't make those bonds and those connections here.
The reason why I think you can't make those bonds in America, this one guy said it best. Like in the military, I learned this when I was in the military, right? First, coming from the Caribbean, it's a small island, right? So you're forced to work together. So when I came over to America, and no one seemed to want to work together. Everyone's like you said, it's overly competitive. It's everyone's like an adversary. So when I went to the military and you build that camaraderie, right? You go through all that bullshit and you work together and all that stuff. There's a camaraderie that's built. So you start helping one another. And I was just like, okay. But I was talking to a Navy dude and he said something important. He said, the reason why you can't build anything with a lot of men in the United States, he said the ground is not fertile enough for that type of connection. And I think that's true. The culture in America does not allow for men to work together. I think you have to go. This is my opinion. At this point, I think you have to go overseas if you want to live a better life and build with other men. That's just my opinion. What do you think about that?
Unfortunately, I tend to agree. I mean, I'm the type of person I can make connections anywhere. I make connections out here. I got people that I hang out with and people that I associate with. But when I was in Germany, pretty much everybody I encountered.
Easy. It was easy, right?
Yeah, just like everywhere I went. And like everywhere I go was like, hey, what's up? You know, and people that don't even know me, you know, hey, you know, come hang out with us, you know, let me buy you a drink. Like this is the type of stuff. And I don't drink, but you know, hey, it's just the thought that counts, right? And so you have these type of this enthusiasm, this fervent zeal to make connections that doesn't exist here.
Yeah.
Again, it's because that matrix mindset, it's like the mentality that if you eat, I starve.
Yep. Zero-sum game.
That's it. If you eat, I starve. It's, if you're eating is because somebody else didn't eat. And that's the mentality here, as opposed to, hey, if we split it, everybody can eat.
Exactly. That's especially fervent in LA. That's a big, that's the culture in LA, basically. Yeah.
Because it's expensive and everybody's competing with each other. And they're competing for limited resources. And again, even if there's enough resources to go around, now you're a threat because now what I have, it's almost like a ruler, right? Here's a good example, right? So you have a ruler and you have these, let's just pretend that this is a ruler, even though it's not. This is a notebook, a ruled notebook with paper. It has the lines on it, right? And so those lines are spaced at intervals, right? But these lines really don't have a whole lot of significance because there's no number associated with those lines. You just see the lines. And so basically these lines can say 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. They can say 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. They can say 12, 12, 12, 12, 12. That really doesn't mean anything to you. When you have a 1, a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way to 12 on a ruler, now that ruler has significance because they're scaled. You see what I'm saying? You have value now because there's differences in those intervals now. These intervals have an actual representation. There's a number associated with those intervals. So now my 5 has meaning. See, now if it's 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, my 5 no longer has meaning. But if I have 5 and I have 4, 3, 2, 1, if I have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, now my 5 has meaning because there's a differentiation between my 5 and the values either below or above me. So now the money that I have has meaning because there's somebody who has less than me. That's the only way somebody can feel wealthy. Because if I lived in a neighborhood where everybody made 6 figures, well, it's just like everybody made 6 figures. But if I live in a neighborhood where I'm the only person that makes 6 figures, or one of the few people that make 6 figures, my 6 figures feels so much more impressive now. Because now there's a unit of comparison, there's a unit of measure, a scale that has been formed. And so this is the reason why you have that mentality in places like, say for LA. Because if you're on the same level as me, it diminishes my value. Because now I have an equal. There's no difference between us two. I have to compete with you on equal footing, and I don't want to do that. I enjoy having an advantage over you.
Exactly. That's perfect. So let me ask you this. I know I said last thing, but because I know you got to go because you did work 12 hours.
Take your time.
Oh, okay. You got time. Okay, beautiful. Well, what's your opinion on men moving forward? I think there's a shift, a change. I think men are starting to wake up, especially when it comes to the MGTOW philosophy and growing as men, becoming more. Some people hate the term self-actualized. Where do you see men going in the future?
Men are already going there now. And I'm going to tell you exactly where they're going. They're taking the MGTOW movement to the next level.
Okay.
The writing's been on the wall for a long time, but now we're seeing the actual manifestations of it. Everybody that's listening, I want y'all to be familiar with the concept. Stealth van. Goes hand in hand. Probably a flip side of the same coin of minimalist living. Small home, tiny home. But now they're taking it to the next level. Stealth van. Stealth van is essentially a van. It looks like a regular cargo van on the outside. But on the inside, it's a fully outfitted camper. Stove, bed in there, a sink. Some even have a composting toilet. You know, this is the links that people are going to as going their own way because they've gotten to the point where they're so sick and tired of the dynamic between men and women. The actual it goes beyond being just unfair. This is a perversion of justice consistently that we see in the court systems today. And men are more often than not on the losing end. You know, they're the proverbial sacrificial lamb, so to speak. And so a lot of men are now taking that, you know, and saying, okay, well, I can forgo the trappings, you know, societal trappings. I can forgo the things that I once held in high regard because they garnered attention and maintained the attention of the opposite sex. I don't have to have, you know, 50 outfits, 50 pair of shoes. I don't have to have a big apartment or a big house. I don't have to have a fancy sports car, fancy motorcycle. You know, I can live in a van comfortably because, you know, as men, we could let's be honest. If push come to shove, you can take a sleeping bag and go sleep on the bridge and you'd be just fine. That's the nature of being a man. Because we can withstand hardships like that. You know, it's not a big deal to me. I could live in a super small studio apartment. I'll be okay. I'll be just fine. I could live in a bad neighborhood. I'll be just fine. I could drive a raggedy car. Doesn't bother me. You know, so now, man, looking like, you know what? Why am I doing things for women? I should be doing things for myself. And so now, men are looking more towards themselves and they're looking at other options. Men are getting shed, you know, they're getting these Home Depot shed homes, Lowe's shed homes. They're doing the stealth van livings. A lot of these guys are, really focusing more on themselves and saving money and looking towards the future, because now when I got money in my bank and I have these resources, now things like moving overseas is actually a reality, feasible reality, because I provision for the future. I've taken the sacrifices now in preparation for the future. Now I got some resources. I can start my own business. I can set myself up to where I don't have to actually go into the office every day. You know, this is what men are doing. And so this is where MGTOW is going now. And you know, some of the, SYSBM, Save Yourself, and, you know, IBMOR, Men of Reform, like, MRA, you know, men's rights activists, and, you know, red pill guys who just consider themselves red pill. Even they're getting more wary of women because they see the lack of due process. You know, you're guilty in a court of public opinion. You're guilty, period. And nobody's going to cape for you to prove your innocence, you know, because the you being guilty is far more entertaining than the truth of you being innocent. The lie of you being guilty is far more entertaining than the truth of you being innocent. So this is the reality of the world we live in today. Men are being villainized just for being men, for acting on our true nature as men. You know, certain behavior characteristics, you know, that embody men. You know, we're villainized for these things. And so men they've reached their boiling point and they're saying, okay, well, we're not going to participate anymore. We're not going to participate in this game. And, you know, we'll see, you know, how the society survives in our absence. And, you know, I think the economy is already feeling the pressure of men withdrawing, negative pressure, that void has to be filled somehow, or there's going to be a collapse. Just like a bottle, you suck the air out of the bottle, that bottle is either going to collapse or something has to come in and fill that void that's created. So that's where we're at as a society.
Yeah, I think right now, brotherhood has always been more important. I think male responsibility has allowed men to kill each other generally because of, you know, they want more women. Basically, that's what they're doing. And with this new brotherhood and working together and one guy said, putting yourself first. I mean, I believe it benefits society better. If you put yourself first, you start a company, not for women or whatever, but for yourself. You have that money. That money can set you up. I remember there was this one guy overseas. He was living really good, a nice little posh apartment, condo overseas. And since it was so cheap overseas, he was living a great life, you know? Whereas a guy back in America, he's struggling to try to impress women and try to impress other people. So I think the MGTOW philosophy is in my opinion, the only way to live. But what brought you to MGTOW?
I don't necessarily consider myself MGTOW, and here's the reason why.
Or more or whatever, yeah.
Not even it more. I don't consider myself anything because I've been living this way before there was MGTOW.
Oh, okay.
You know, my lifestyle manifests itself, you know, in its current form. Let me see, what year would that be? That would be like 2005, 2006 is where I kind of came into my current state of being. You know, but it was a transition that started, you know, around 2000, 2001. That's when my transition started as far as my mentality. But I arrived you know, this is what kind of interests me, is because when I started hearing somebody saying, I'm like, yo, this is what me and my cousin been talking about for years. You know, these are the conversations we've been having for years. And the reason why I came to this conclusion a lot quicker is because, see, growing up in California, the competition was fierce, obviously. So in order for me to have any success with women, I had to actually increase my numbers just by odds. So if I had a 0.1 success rate, 0.1 success rate, you know, that means that I got to talk to 1,000 women, you know, to even stand a chance. You see what I'm saying? To even get any woman that, you know, that I can actually realize a woman would actually interest in me. So I got in the habit early on of, you know, just talking, initiating contact, making contact with different women, you know. And this was before the internet, or the internet explosion. So I was actually going out. Like, I would get in the car, me and my cousin, we get in the car, and we literally drive around all day. And we'll see a woman at a stoplight, rolling down the window, hey, trying to flag her down. See a woman walking down the street, pull over on the side of the street, busy street, don't care. Get out the car, let me try to talk to her. See a woman going to a store, you get out the car, go into the store, try to talk to a woman, you know. And this is what we were doing. So we constantly just developed that habit. And so then it got to the point where I didn't have any apprehension. I didn't have any fear of rejection. You know, so this is the reason why I can talk to them, because I don't care. You know, I've been rejected so much at this point, it doesn't bother me anymore. And so, you know, just doing that, I've had so much experience with women. I've already come across pretty much every possibility as far as behavioral characteristics, personality type, I've encountered it all because I've tried to talk to so many women. Just by the odds, I just ran into pretty much every possibility. And so I was able to see certain things, see certain patterns, recognize certain patterns just by numbers. Because if you have a pattern that has a, say for instance, a 2% expression rate, you got in order to see it twice, you got to talk to 100 different women. You see what I'm saying? So if you don't have that much experience, certain behavior patterns you're not going to see. And so this knowledge, you're not gonna be able to come across this knowledge, just by chance. See, I came across this knowledge by chance, just by experience. So I was already aware of the nature of women. Already understood that women were opportunists. Already understood that, out of sight, out of mind. Yeah. When the cat's away, the mice will play. I already understood that a long time ago. When I first went into the military, the girl that I was seeing got pregnant by somebody else. I already understood that.
Oh, the military really opened your eyes when it comes to female nature.
Yeah, and then being on base and actually having some personal encounters with women who significant others have been deployed, allegedly. So I'll just say allegedly. So I was privy, to the inside scoop on the female nature a long time ago. So this is the reason why I don't consider myself MGTOW. I'm not saying I'm a special guy or something like that, but just by circumstances, this is knowledge. This is already common knowledge to me. And so when the guys are going through this red pill rage and they're saying this and they're saying, I'm like, it's kind of amusing to me because it's like, well, I already knew all this stuff because I've been rejected a million times already. So I've been screwed over a million times. Luckily, I haven't been to the point where I've actually, got married. Fortunately, I avoided that marriage. But,
yeah, lucky there.
Yeah, and I recommend, any guy, if you're under 25, definitely. If you're definitely under 25, absolutely under no circumstances should you get married. Absolutely under no circumstances should you get married under 25. Between the ages of 18 and 25, there's no reason why you should be married. And preferably,
you should never get married.
not under 30. Now, marriage, here's the thing about marriage, right? When I say marriage, I'm talking about legal marriage. You should never, ever be legally married in the United States. But spiritually married, like that means you just go to a minister and you say exchange vows and you say that you're going to be with that person. I could see myself doing that with a special someone. But would I ever go down to the courthouse? Never in life. Never, ever in life. Neither should you guys. There should be no man going down to the courthouse unless you're that guy, Jeremy Meeks, the one that married the one that had a baby by that billionaire lady, the one that had that got arrested and he had his mugshot.
Yeah. He's a model now. Yeah,
that guy. Now he got a billionaire's daughter pregnant. Were you aware of that?
I didn't even know. I know he broke up with his girl and then he went and found someone else. Yeah.
She's like her dad is some type. I forgot where he made his money, but this guy's dad is a billionaire. Now she's an adult woman now, but her dad is a billionaire. He ended up linking up with her. He left his wife. Now, he was married. He left his wife to be with this lady. She's a billionaire heiress. He got her pregnant. She may be having a baby by now or something like that, but because it's been a while. But he did get her pregnant. It was all over the news, and I applaud him. That's when you lock somebody down. Billionaire's daughter, a billionaire herself, But for most men, that's not going to happen. You're not going to be lucky enough to come across that. Do not get married legally. Don't ever do it. Because here's the thing. Men are under the impression, we've been conditioned for so long to believe that marriage is the natural progression of any relationship. That's the problem. Marriage has been programmed into us as the natural progression of a long-term meaningful relationship between a man and a woman. That's the validation of your relationship. Oh, when we got married, your husband, your wife, they got to have that title, or else your relationship is meaningless. And that's just simply not true.
Yeah.
It's simply not true. If your relationship is going good, like if it's not broke, don't fix it. Oh, we having a great relationship, so what do we need to get married for? How is the marriage going to enhance the relationship? What does it bring to the table? Versus what are some of the risks involved with marriage? Particularly if you get divorced. What are some of those risks? So do the risks outweigh the benefits, or the benefits outweigh the risks? That's the question you should be asking yourself. And as logically thinking men, that should be the question you ask yourself before any decision is made on anything. So if you can, in all honesty and good faith, decide that marriage from a legal standpoint is more beneficial than a risk, then by all means do it. But don't get on the internet and complain later on and have some sob story, or go off about how you got screwed over in your marriage, because there's too much information out there right now. Readily available information. There's no reason for a man to make a silly mistake like that in this day and age.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if men are truly that logical if they continue to make that mistake.
Well, oftentimes, like for instance, my father is older, 70 years old. So he came from a specific era. And so he still is advocating for marriage. He still wants me to get married. When are you going to get married? This is the question that he always asks me every time we talk. And he just, for him, that is the end all be all. He's still married to my mother to this day. It worked out for him, but they're from a different era.
Yeah.
The women nowadays, they don't value marriage the same way, because we've been conditioned, culturally ingrained, the generation that we're in now and the generations that's come after us. It's been ingrained, and we've been programmed, indoctrinated to believe that, you can you change your mind at a whim on marriage. Okay, you're married today, you decide tomorrow you don't want to be married, you get a divorce.
Yeah.
No big deal. And so women don't value marriage to that degree. And women, they'll divorce you over pretty much anything. Any sign of distress or being uncomfortable, they're going to divorce you. And when they divorce you, you're going to lose. It's just the way it is.
Absolutely. The thing is about marriage, I don't even think men should get spiritually married. Because when I was in the military, I discovered something, well, this is my opinion, on female nature. And I made a video about it. I call it the shady friend theory. Basically, shady friend law, in my opinion, if you think about it now. To me, a woman can never become more than a shady friend. I think naturally women are just shady friends. Now, you can have a lot of fun with a shady friend. You can go to a club with a shady friend, pop bottles with a shady friend, pick up chicks with a shady friend. But ultimately, a woman will always be a shady friend. The shady friend will always screw you over later on down the line, because the shady friend cares more about themselves than they do about you. And I find that all women are like that. No matter what you do, no matter how nice she is or whatever, only cultural expectations keeps them in place, from my point of view. They're shady friends. They're fair weather friends. One day they like you, and the next day they don't.
Agreed.
I look at my cousins from the Caribbean, perfect example. They're probably the perfect women that you would want to marry. Master's degree, good job, take care of the kids, all that stuff. But then when it came down to it, I went and visited them recently in the islands, right? When it came down to it, they were still basically, I would say, selfish, I guess. They only cared about their world, and nothing else. So when you look at women like that, it's just like, you can have fun with them and do all that stuff, but just keep in mind that when push comes to shove, shady friend, they'll take advantage when you least suspect it.
Well, when you look at the dissolution of marriages, primarily initiated by women, per
Yeah,
statistics, at a rate of about 75 to 80% of all marriages are which end in divorce are initiated by women. Um, they're considering themselves the children that are in that relationship. They don't consider the children, because if they considered the children, they wouldn't want to disrupt the home life
exactly,
that fosters a great and fulfilling childhood.
exactly,
But they're willing to do that for their own uh, selfish desires, and they'll take money from the man, or they'll endanger the man's livelihood, which is at great expense to the child, because now that if that guy goes to jail for failure to pay child support, now he's going to be away from those kids, and they're not going to receive the tutelage and male oversight and male influence that they need. And so, women really generally don't care about that. It's like, if I don't get what I want, then nobody's happy. That type of mentality.
exactly.
And unfortunately, we see the results of that. Um, with these.
Yeah,
Yeah. So.
you definitely see it in America. I mean, America. You see it. To be honest, you see it all over the world. It's just that, like I said, the culture expectation. If you're in a place where the cultural expectations keeps that type of behavior in check somewhat, you can manage it. But what I find is that overall, the core of the woman's nature is still there, and that's the problem. Like, you can't get around it. Like, no matter what you do, you can't alpha the system. You can't be like the super dominant dude. The core nature is still there, no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, I think this was a good discussion, man. I really appreciate you coming on, man. I'm gonna put your link in the description. Go ahead and tell people where they can reach you, as far as, like, I think you have an Instagram and all that stuff, and a little bit about your channel as well, so people know where to find you.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube. Supertriz is the name of the channel, as you can look and see by my lower thirds. My information is right there. YouTube.com/user/Supertriz. Very easy. Just type me in the search bar. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you catch me when I go live. Most of my streams are live. Actually, all of my streams, besides with maybe like 2 exceptions, are live streams. I think it's more organic, and it allows you to take part in the conversation. And I do appreciate that feedback I get from a live audience. So definitely check me out on YouTube. Speak about a variety of topics. I'm not one dimensional by any stretch of the imagination. I also do some gaming at times late night, and I may get on a PlayStation. You may see some gaming streams as well. So keep that in mind. That may pique your interest, and go ahead and subscribe to my channel and check out the content I have up there so far. I recommend definitely the Age of Aquarius stream I have up. Again, that's Age of Aquarius. I talk about the dawn of a new era from a technological standpoint. And I believe I'll be doing some additional installments to that Age of Aquarius, and maybe start a series of that, because there's maybe a mini series, because there's a lot of topics that I want to expound upon. So look forward to that content coming up at some point in the future. For those of you that actually want to get in contact with me via correspondence, Instagram _Supertriz. Again, _Supertriz. Don't forget the underscore for my Instagram account. You follow me, I do follow you back. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, feedback on my material, any topics that you want expounded upon, hit me up on my DM. I do respond to my DM, so hit me up on my DM, and I'll definitely get back to you, and we can build on that. So that's pretty much it for my contact information. I do have some links to Black Avenger TV on my YouTube channel, but honestly, I haven't put up a lot of content there. I maybe put up 2 videos. Most of my content can be found on YouTube. So if you want to reach me, hit up my Instagram or maybe even the comment section of one of my YouTube videos, and make sure you at me in the comment section, so that way I'm able to it'll give me an alert so I can make sure I read that comment. And that's pretty much it.
Beautiful. All right, man. I tell you what, next time we do this, I want to break down how you got into the healthcare field and how other people can get into the healthcare field.
Well, that'd be definitely good topic.
So, but all right, so cool, man. Once again, I appreciate it. Stay up, man.
Appreciate it.
I'll talk to you later, sir.
All right, peace.